Welcome back, traders and investors. We have some very special guests on this morning. Jeff Pierce and Karen Starich of Astrology Traders. Jeff and Karen, how you doing this morning?
Great, thanks.
I'm doing well.
Okay,
Thanks.
just real quickly before we get into the questions, could you just, Jeff, could you just give me a little bit of your educational and market background?
Well, I'm a self-taught investor. I've been trading since 1999 when everyone thought that they were a genius, and we soon found out how that went. And I went a full-time trader in 2004.
Okay, and Karen, could you tell us a little bit about your education and market background?
Sure. I have an education in communications. I have a degree from UC Santa Barbara in communications. The astrology evolved out of my association with some professional astrologers, actually. So that was in the early 90s. And then over the years, just dabbling with it, taking it a little bit more serious after 2008 and the market correction, and began writing publicly about what I saw and why that happened, and because I actually was looking forward then and seeing a little bit more of difficulty in the markets, landmines along the way, I guess. And so then became a contributing writer at Zen Trader with Jeff Pierce. And out of popularity and a lot of following that started to develop while I was writing articles on the public site, we decided to put together and launch Astrology Traders, which would be a subscription service based on astrology and technical analysis, and combine those two together to form profitable trades, to put together trades and analyze stocks, the bonds, gold and silver. We used to do quite a bit with gold and silver, not as much anymore. The bond market still, and then stocks. And so we've carried that on since 2011, so it's about 2.5 years now. And we love it. We've never missed a weekend update since we started doing it. So it's been an adventure.
Okay, Jeff. So you started out as a momentum trader, and you had mentioned the late '90s and stuff. So were you just capitalizing on the moves, kind of the early internet move stocks? Is that was it was kind of being a so's bandit? Was that your early approach to trading?
Well, my early approach to trading was it took me some time to really develop my own style. As I said, I pretty much had saved some money up, and I just kind of dove in, and I was trying to decide, am I going to be a fundamental trader? Am I going to try to analyze these stocks and determine what they're worth? And early on, I had subscribed some newsletters, read a bunch of books, and in my experience, I just found trying to really determine what a stock's worth, and then when you watch what happens when earnings would come out, stocks would fall when earnings were so good, and stocks would go up when earnings were so bad. It just didn't make any sense to me. So I really developed. It took some years to develop my own personal technical analysis style, and I've really, in my experience, found that using the chart is much more effective than trying to analyze fundamentals and determine what the intrinsic value is with the stocks.
Okay, now, Karen, you're the one that focuses more on the astrology. So,
Hmm.
I guess what I'm trying to get a better understanding is your time frames. For trading. Obviously, you can't use the weather to day trade. How do you incorporate your time frames with the astrological patterns?
Well, astrology is complicated, and I think that's probably why there are few people who do what I do. It is my background in astrology was really, as I mentioned, learning from people who were, I feel, masters at astrology. And so I have developed a unique style which is based on the United States chart. And so I use the United States chart. There's a Dow chart. There's actually index charts, but then there's also the Federal Reserve chart. And so if you were to say that all of the markets are like a family, the parents of that family are really the United States and the Federal Reserve. And so you have to, like you would look at a child's chart, you would go and look at the parent's chart to see how the life is of the child, because it's going to be predicated upon what's happening in the parents' lives. And so the Federal Reserve and the United States are the parents, and you have to really understand those two charts, because even though we could have a bullish stock or a stock that has just a real great astrology. I'll give Apple as an example, because even Apple was not immune from the 2008 crisis. So no matter how good a stock chart is, if the parents, the United States and the Federal Reserve, are being thrown off balance, you're going to have a market correction, and those are going to be subjected to it regardless. So they may still have good business structure, and they may still have good products, and they may still be selling those products, but they're going to be subjected to a market correction because of what's happening in the United States. So the United States is really the leader internationally, and so you have to really understand and really look at what is happening in that chart and know how to read it. And so we have, over time, I feel that I've been, actually history has shown, I've been very accurate at predicting in advance what that trend is going to be, and with that have been able to put together a general market trend, and then we can go in and we can find those stocks that are going to be best positioned to take advantage of that move. So if that makes sense. So I can see further out, like we looked at the markets for the year 2013 at the end of 2012, and was really projecting that we were going to see a very big market move sometime in February. And so after February, we did get a really nice bullish move in the markets, and so we were able to hone in on the stocks that were going, or the sectors that were going to do really well during that time. And so we've been able to produce some really fabulous profits.
I wanted to say, because I thought that was a really good question, because given that our service is 2.5 years in, after about the first year and a half, we really started gelling, because the time frames are pretty crucial. And sometimes you'll be bullish on something, and I'll be looking at the technical levels. And I mean, how many times have we gotten out of a stock because it's had a really short term, like let's say we're bullish on something, or you're bullish, like we're both bullish, but it's kind of moved further than what I think that it can sustain that. So we'll sell it out for a profit, and then we'll end up eventually buying back in. So we have adjusted our time frames to work together, but we'll also be trying to take advantage of short-term volatility, because I personally believe that long-term investing right now is not, it's kind of dead in my opinion. I feel like there's a progression that a momentum stock takes, and once that's kind of worked its way through the course, then it's time to take those profits and move on. And another thing that we look at with time frames, or how we incorporate it, is one of the main strategies that we use is looking for stocks that have been in long-term downtrends, but then something is trying to break that up from a technical level. And so one of the first steps is, because I look at so many charts each night, and I'm looking for certain key setups, I will then relay that stock. I'll be like, Karen, here's a stock that I think that you need to look at from an astrological perspective, because she will see if that bump up in the stock is something that can sustain. Karen, if you want to go into a good example of that.
Well, before we go into that, and I mean, you said some really interesting things there, Karen, and you spoke fundamentally about, the United States and, the actions of the federal government. We have a new Federal Reserve chief coming in here, and you made your predictions at the end of 2012 that came to fruition in 2013. But I think what I want to know, and what all our listeners want to know, is, when is the Fed going to start tapering? What are the stars saying about that?
Well, that's actually a very good question, and I really do think that 2013 was a very unique year. We wrote a lot about this in our updates, and I really tried to convey the message that there are certain times in the markets where you can invest very freely and you can be more profitable than other times. Every year is not the same. Sometimes it's easier to be navigating the markets and be very profitable. So I think you can maximize your investing efforts at certain times and make more money than you can in other times. And 2014 looks troublesome to me. I know there are other astrologers out there that are suggesting the same thing, and I don't really read what other people write. I very independently do my work. And I will say that there was a warning this last week. And it's interesting because both the short-term and the mid-term timing signal for Jeff have both flipped bearish. The long-term is bullish right now, and so we
for the
continue
NASDAQ.
to be right. So we continue to be bullish in our what we are advising currently. But I do think that the first week of January, everyone is going to know there is a shift. It is a warning. I will tell you, it will be a warning, and I am going to just announce here that I think we're all going to see a shift in the bond market, and I would say January 7th through 9th, it will be clear as a bell. I would not be surprised if TBT breaks higher. And so when you're asking me about the Fed policies, there's an evolution in astrology, and so it's not just one thing triggers and it's just this one-time event and then you move on. So there's what I'll call, esoterically speaking, karma. Decisions are made. The Fed takes actions that then, because if there's mistakes, what have you, it plays out at a later date. And so if we look back to 2008, I believe Lehman Brothers was orchestrated. There are, rumors, gossip that J.P. Morgan was involved in that. Whatever the case is, I believe that it was something that was planned and it was organized as an attempt to reorganize the entire financial order to create a new grand bargain. And so from that point then, which I warned about in October, I wrote an article on Zen Trader on October 27th, 2011, warning people because I saw Jim Cramer on CNBC in the morning on the market news, and he was basically admonishing fund managers and hedge funds and others for not being in the market. And my theme of that article was watch out, because I saw it, and it did hit one day later, and MF Global went bankrupt. And so that was not an organized event. That threw them off balance. That came out of left field, and I don't think that's over.
Okay.
And so in June, we had CFTC came in and made actually, they were fined $100 million. And so I don't think that that's finished, and even observers are saying that it could be a few years before this really, truly, fully unravels. And I find that interesting because I think that whatever, and it's been hidden, we really don't know how much MF Global was worth or lost. And those people still have not recovered 100% of their money. It's the first time that's ever happened with a brokerage. And so what really happened then, and who all was involved, how deep in it was J.P. Morgan. And so in the next few years, it may not be labeled as such that what is unraveling has to do with that, but I believe that it does.
Well,
And
that's
so,
interesting thesis here, and Jeff, as far as you're more on the technical end of things and the market timing. What should long-term investors be looking for here? I mean, Karen's being very exact here. I mean, she's pinpointing things down to the first week in January. Are you waiting something a little bit longer term to come to fruition, or what should long-term investors be looking out for? We've had a tremendous run in the market here. People never like to take their chips off the table. What would be the trigger for you?
Well, I was just going to say that I have a proprietary timing signal for the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones, and the TSX, and I really focus on that. And it doesn't forecast, long term. It doesn't really it really tells you what's going on in the now. And I've kind of, it doesn't whipsaw anymore. So basically, I follow that, like what it's doing right now. And right now, last week, my NASDAQ flipped bearish, but my Dow and the Toronto Stock Exchange timing signals are still positive. So we're starting to see signs that the markets are breaking down, but that in itself isn't a sign to just basically bail out on all your longs and get short. In fact, how I'm personally trading right now is I'm removing some long positions that are underperforming, and I'm getting ready in the event that, and I'm not really taking on new long positions right now, kind of because we are in troublesome time, and this is traditionally a difficult time to trade because the markets get to be pretty volatile. Lots of fund managers start to go on vacation, and so December it is not really the best time to be extremely actively trading. With the things Karen sees coming in January, that kind of confirms with what I'm seeing technically, that it's time to become a little more defensive, and let's see where we go.
Okay, Karen.
I'll agree with that too. Yeah.
Okay, no, I just astrology. So I think I took one astrology class. I didn't do real well on it. So are you looking at like particular formations, in the stars? Are you looking at the sun or the moon or lunar eclipse? I mean, what do you specifically look for in the skies here for your analysis and your turning points?
Well, it's a combination of all those factors, and then sometimes it can be you drill it down, from the bigger the eclipse cycles, then you drill it down to the outer planets, and then you keep going closer in interplanetary moves. And so the eclipses set a theme, and we had an important eclipse just in October and then in November, and so the lunar eclipse squared the opposition of Pluto and Neptune between the Fed and the U.S. charts. So that was a very significant. That's like a warning of to the public that something is off, and there's a secrecy, and there are secret deals that are probably going on. So it was a warning, and so that eclipse is going to be activated again in the spring, when another lunar eclipse will again make a square, a T-square, to that same opposition from the other side. So we have Aries, and then we have Libra. They're opposite, and so this eclipse is going over that degree in activating this opposition. And so you look at that because it does suggest that there is something serious. But I want to qualify what I said earlier, because I don't want people to freak out. There is something different this time, and like I mentioned, we are evolving. The United States is evolving, and so the people have, since 2008, people have reoriented their lives. They've adjusted. The middle class continues to thrive and continues to move on, and people are following their dreams, their hopes, and wishes. So there are some very good aspects within this sort of intense cycle, which is karmic, which is happening for the Federal Reserve and for the power elite. Let's put it that way. But the people have moved on, and they are not engaging in that type of activity, and so they've saved money now. They've deleveraged somewhat. I mean, we've heard reports about that. So with all of the, the Pluto-Uranus square, you're probably familiar with that since you've studied some of the astrology. We have some exact squares that are carrying out in 2015, all the way into 2015.
Okay.
And so there are serious things happening, but there's good things there too. And so it's being able to navigate that. You have to navigate it.
Okay, all right. Well, just to wrap things up here, we kind of heard your predictions a little bit for 2014. If people are interested in your type of analysis, integrating astrology with the markets, do you have any books that you recommend for them, or what's the best way for people to familiarize themselves with your theses?
I think to learn about astrology is wonderful. I really recommend, just going to, search on Amazon. Noel Till has some really good books out there. There really, in my view, there are not very many books on astrology in terms of market investing. The best, I would say, Bill Meridian has probably got some of the best material out there. He's also a professional. He works on Wall Street. So I think, starting reading, understanding the moon cycles, but to really, subscribe to our service. We talk about the astrology in the service, and you can even learn from that. you can pick up some of the basic points in astrology in the books, but I think once you're actually investing with it and using it or being guided with somebody like myself, then you can learn more. You learn by experience.
And Jeff, do you guys have a product on MarketFi now, or be coming out with one?
Tomorrow, we're actually launching. We've spent the last month with the onboarding process. We've been placing our trades live and in real time on there, and so that way MarketFi, they verify these trades, and we have 6 closed trades already. Five of them were up, and the average trade gain is 16%.
And what
But
were the
tomorrow's the
time frame on
tomorrow.
those trades?
Well, the time frames, they were all open and closed within the last 5 weeks. But we also have, I think, 8 positions that are still open. So I would say the average holding time can be anywhere from a week to, we have one trade that we've been in serious satellite for almost a year now, but that's uncommon. So I would say the average trade is anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months.
Okay, well, great. Well, you got that product on MarketFi. We'd like our listeners to check that out. Jeff and Karen of Astrology Traders, thank you very much for coming on. Karen, you're probably the only other person on Wall Street besides me that's a little bit bearish going into 2014. So we'll have to keep an eye on your predictions, and we'd really like to have, getting back into after the new year, we'd certainly like to have you guys on again. Give us a little update on your MarketFi products, as well. See what happened that first week of January, the January effect. Let's see if the stars are aligning for the move that you're predicting. So thank you very much. Have a good trading
Right.
day, and we'll be in touch
All right.
with you
Thank
soon.
you. All right.
Thank,
Thanks.
Thanks,
thank
Jeff.
you.
Bye.